The robots are coming, but it might not be as bad as you think. In fact, AI powered technology has the potential to accelerate your customer service and give your staff the breathing room to do what they do best. In this episode of Title Talks, I speak with Hoyt Mann, president and co founder of Alanna.ai. We talk about his background in the tech industry, how he and his partner are laser focused on solving some critical challenges for title professionals, and what role AI will play in the near future. I'm Amanda Farrell, and this is Title Talks. You were also at Alta One, right? How was that?
I was, yes. Alta One was fantastic. We had a great time interacting with our customers, interacting with folks, and really just enjoying New Orleans. It was fantastic.
Yeah. Becky, our CMO, was able to go, and a couple of other people from our sales team. I joined virtually, which was really fun. I got to hear a couple of sessions, but yeah, it's good to hear that was a good trip for you.
What did you do the roulette?
No, I like clicked the button and then I got really anxious and I clicked off. I was like, no, I don't want to. I'm not ready. I'm like, was not prepared really to interact with people. So I had that like introvert moment where I was like, no, Amanda, you don't want to do this.
Isn't it funny that we've been in this virtual world for year plus and almost 2 years, and we're like still a little bit camera shy. We're like, oh, no.
I'm an elder millennial, as they say, and I'm definitely I prefer text-based communication in general. I remember dial-up, I remember Napster, I remember like the advent of the internet when I was in middle school, and so
Okay.
I mainly communicated with people via AIM when I was in middle school and high school, and I think that definitely feeds into my introvert tendencies. So yeah, video just like scares me way too much. Like
so AIM being AOL Instant Messenger.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'm older, but I was tech forward. I remember those days. Yeah. I was really the generation. So the Steve Jobs and the Bill Gates were probably about 5 to 7 years ahead of me, maybe 10 years ahead of me. So they were kind of basically, forging forward with their companies. And I was kind of coming into the world as the technology world. So, it's interesting if you read any business books, and some of my favorites are ones that kind of tell stories back when these companies were created, and it's like, was Bill Gates really this really super sharp guy? Why did he have the opportunities he had? So I see you're nodding your head like, I'm not sure if you're saying, yeah, I've heard these stories, or yeah, I know of them. But timing was such a key part. I mean, they were of an age and they had opportunity and access, like Bill Gates had access to a mainframe computer that nobody really had access to because of the cost. Just to have any kind of opportunity to be on a mainframe, to actually program on a mainframe, it was just super expensive. So you had to have access into these systems kind of through a back door, or through a way that kind of stealing way into a university to be able to pour all your effort and time into something that nobody else would have access to. And again, brilliant guy, on top of having access to things that nobody ever had access to, kind of launched him into his career.
Yeah, and that's actually a really great segue into, the first question that I have is about how you got into this field. I was reading a little bit about your background in developing customer service software, so maybe you can go into that a little bit now.
Well, so I was talking about how my age, graduating high school, going to college, and going through business information systems degree, and having a dial up to do my programming exercises, and coming out of college as a mainframe developer. And that was as business / mainframe developer. And so coming out of school with that kind of expertise gave me an opportunity I kind of walked into a world of, there was a paper processing. We were working for the federal government as a third party, and there was a lot of papers processing, and these forms processing. And then we were putting data systems on top of this very manual, labor intensive data entry process. And I really got cut my teeth, if you will, in this world between mainframe and really the advent of personal computing. And so as those two worlds clashed together, I was just right there at the right time And I was in a company called Electronic Data Systems. So EDS is the name of the company. And there were 80,000 people at that point worldwide. Now they're HP, a long history there. But when I was there, I had an opportunity to join a group called the Internet and New Media Group. And so we were launching, and I should kind of show the plaque on my wall, but Pepsi.com was the first web property that we launched, and that was Pepsi's first presence on the internet. So, of my time coming into technology and into internet technology was at a time where people didn't have websites. Big brands like Coke and Pepsi were just launching their web presence and doing some pretty innovative work along those lines. So it was a very exciting time to be coming into, as the internet was developing from a word-based, links-based internet to images to websites with real audio, with streaming audio and games and things like that. So a lot of fun.
That's awesome. So tell me a little bit then, what was this transition from, where you started out to where you are now? What got you into the title industry? And
Yeah,
maybe a little bit about how Alana came about?
sure. So I always like to say that you either are born into the title industry or you're tricked into the title industry. and I'd been involved in VC-backed technology companies, build it and they would come type technology companies with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding, and just money was no object, and all these toys at your fingertips. And when that dot-com bubble burst, I should say, back in 2000, about 2000 timeframe, 2001 timeframe, when that happened, I'd been on that roller coaster for so long. I said, look, I'm out. I'm going back to real business. And I had a friend that had a contact at a software company in title. And I said, I'm ready. Let's build a product, have some customers, and good, solid customer service. And so at that point, that's when I joined a company called RamQuest. And RamQuest was at that point probably about 20 people. They were in this very old type downtown office building. And when I joined, there was a guy, the founder of the company, Randall Nelson, had interviewed me. And again, I'm a software developer. And Randall looked at me and he's like, well, you don't program in the language that we have. I don't have a use for you. I'm like, Randall, I'm hungry for a job. I said, just let me work here for a month. You don't like me. You don't like my work product. You don't have to pay me. I'll work for free. And Randall's like, oh, okay. I don't see what I could lose. And so that was over 20 years ago. And Randall and I are still working together. When RamQuest grew to a point and got sold to Old Republic in Land America in 2005, Randall and I exited that company and started a company called Phaseware. And Phaseware is a customer service and support company. We built a software that we thought, hey, RamQuest could really use this, being a robust enterprise class type customer service and support solution. So we built this with RamQuest in mind. So over, I guess, better part of 17 years, we were dealing with some big organizations dealing with customer service and support. And we got to see firsthand what good customer service and support looked like. And we were building tools to support that process. So as we were dabbling in AI for that company, we said, hey, what would it look like to take AI from a customer service perspective and take it back to the title industry? Thinking about RamQuest in those days. And we both got pretty excited over that concept. And we said, we think we could do some pretty fun things. And then with COVID coming in, that issue became even more prominent. And so we had already had the product built as COVID hit. And it was, we just kind of started riding that wave at the top of the crest.
So I was curious to know, what are some of the unique challenges facing title professionals when providing customer service? When we ask real estate agents what the number one thing that they want in a title company, is communication. Like, that is
That's
the
right.
word that they say over and over again, good communication. So, how does a tool like Alana and other customer service software sort of help bridge those gaps and maybe help them overcome a lot of those challenges they have with customer service and communication?
Yeah, I mean, so the key component is there's always a challenge of staffing. In a month, you're probably well staffed for one day within that month. so, so, so because all the other 30 days of that month or so, you're either understaffed or overstaffed. That flow there is challenging, even in the best of times. So when it comes to how do you deal with the fluctuations of customer service and the support needs, really, if you lean into this idea of a 24/7 type customer support function, it's like, well, how do you really deliver on that? Everybody wants to say, hey, we provide great customer service or great customer support. But really at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what does that really mean? Generationally, it can differ. But again, if all the staff is busy doing closings, that means nobody's available for a phone call. And if you drop an email in, that could take a while to get to. And all of it requires humans on that side of the equation. And I think that's the unique challenge.
Have you heard directly from any, key partners like real estate agents, their reaction to when a title company does implement a software like Alana? Have you had any feedback regarding that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll just audit the chats and as we see them come through for different customers. And so there's a machine learning component of Alana. Alana is AI, but that's the general umbrella. The more specific technology is the natural language processing. So the NLP that Alana implements. Well, for the NLP to be good, she has to be trained. So she went from like a baby brain to like a toddler brain. And the way you get through that is learning and trial and error. And we have to go in and show her, oh, well, you should have answered it this way. Or she got to a point to where she's just like, I don't know, and throws her hands up. We actually show her what the correct path would have been. And by us showing her that path, she creates a neural network of more scenarios that she can apply that same learning to. And so that's machine learning. So being able to create this Alana brain that's there to answer these questions, and we watch the chats come through, they're very entertaining because Alana has a personality. She uses emojis to communicate back and forth. She can tell jokes. She has, people, we'll see chats come through that say things like, wow, you are so fast at typing, how do you do it? And she'll respond, hey, I'm a virtual assistant. I'm a conversational AI virtual assistant. The guy like, well, you're so cool and we love you. She's like, thanks. So there's humorous conversations like that almost on a daily basis to where she can almost do things faster than a human can do. And she has access to the back end production system. So she's able to reach in, grab a document and send it to somebody really as quick as somebody can log in, find the file, find the document, take the document, attach it, and then send it along. And so that's where we see people getting really excited is Alana's picking up a lot of the mundane tasks that they otherwise would have had to do and having simultaneous conversations without all your staff being, on some web chat.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense too, especially when you think about when someone has a question about their upcoming closing, they're most likely working the same business hours that a typical title company is working. I know real estate agents do a lot of their work on the weekend, so it makes perfect sense to have a solution like that. And the fact that she's so quick to learn and to engage and that she has a tone that's so personalized is really cool. Going back to this concept of communication and poor communication, the industry is bracing for new CFPB regulations, more regulations, and poor communication can lead to a lot of trade quality control violations on the closing disclosure. So, how does Alana help assist combating communication problems with lenders?
So Alana can communicate with anybody outside that title company. Having information available so that all parties can be adequately informed of different disclosures, having that 24/7 to make sure it's timely to get that information out, whether it be a lender, whether it be a real estate agent, whoever it is, they have to have access to this information. It's got to be easy for them to get to. And it's really, truly, it's got to be in the flow of how they do business day in and day out. Yeah. And again, it's a challenge. I mean, these volumes are increasing and it just creates more opportunity for somebody to misstep. And so having systems in place that can help along the way is critically important.
Do you get resistance still from a lot of people in the title industry about implementing AI software like this? And if so, what do you say to people like that, to critics about how? maybe they say Alana can't solve our customer service, or maybe she's not as good as, our secretary Dottie or whatever. So what are your kind of comebacks to that kind of thing?
I love Dottie, by the way. She's the best. And that's what we find, that in and out. The culture, the company culture of a title company, been built over, can be literally decades, if not a century of history, that builds the identity of a title company. And that culture comes through, through those decades of existence. And so as you take that culture, this established culture, and try to mesh in this AI to be, in essence, an employee of the title company, there's resistance there. It's like, again, like Dottie, she's like, I don't want somebody coming in and replacing my job. I'm the person that needs to be talking to our customers. I'm the person that they want to talk to. Well, that's great, but yet Dottie's 65 years old and really could not be there in the next few years and looking for retirement. That is where AI can come into play, which is, AI is scary. If you talk about it to somebody who is not a technology type person, all they can think about is robots taking over the world. And I mean, you can just dream up all these scenarios. And so when you talk about it along the lines of, especially from an escrow officer's perspective or closer's perspective, and talk about it along the lines of, you're really giving a higher level of service to your customers, and it's meant to be something that is going to benefit your customers and create a smoother closing experience, elevate your customer experience by giving them information in a timely manner and in 24/7 availability. All that adds to the value that AI can bring to a company. But again, you have to understand where they're at and understand that, and kind of show a path to, this is, people want to text and get information. And if they, your generation or early millennial generations, they might define customer service as, if I have to pick up the phone, I'm having a bad day. If I have to talk to somebody, this is not where I want to be. I'd rather text somebody and get my information, and not, like I said, if I have to call somebody, that's like a last line of a defense. Whereas a generation like mine, or the baby boomer generation, their first thing that they're going to want to do is pick up the phone and talk to Dottie. Hey Dottie, this is Hoyt. How are your kids? How's the dog? All that good stuff. And those are great conversations to have. But again, nothing stays the same. Everything continues to change. And as that change happens, we can help title companies, because there's a labor shortage. That's where AI can help, give a little bit more of a footing for the folks that are going into retirement, or the new folks that are coming in, and they don't know what a commitment is. And, and they're like, where do I find that? What document is that? And they're tapping on somebody else's shoulder. And so that learning, so now you got two people solving one question that happens 100 times in a day. That can be a drain, and really hold people back, title companies back.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Your point about picking up the phone, I get so much anxiety when I have to call someone. It, and it's so funny too, because I guess I got kind of tricked into getting into this industry as a marketer, but I love it. It's just funny though, because I get emails sometimes where people will be like, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, okay, can we do that over email? But yeah, when I have to call someone, I get so anxious. So my point of contact is definitely always looking for a chat bot or something where I can just type in my problem, get the answers, the solutions, that list of like, here are your options. Oh, this is the pathway I know I want to choose to get to the solution that I know I need. And so seeing that become a potential problem solver within the title industry is really exciting for me, because I know it'll appeal to so many people, especially people who are becoming the majority of home buyers today. And so that's really important to think about. I think if you are planning on having your title company for the next 10, 20 years, this is definitely the technology that you need to start implementing now in order to service those home buyers today and in the future.
You bring up such a great point when you talk about that web chat, because those chat bots have been around for quite a few years. And if you think about those chatbots, they're pretty static components on a website. And they can be frustrating because if your question is a little bit outside the lines, those that can be a point of frustration versus a point of customer satisfaction. And that's where so there's a distinct separation between what a chatbot is and what a virtual assistant is. And so Alana is that virtual assistant that doesn't have these very static pathways that a traditional chatbot would have. And so that's something to make note of. I think that's something that the industry as a whole is becoming educated on, which is understanding that chatbots, they might call Alana a chatbot, but she's much more than that. She truly understands. She actually has a sense of humor. If you insult her, she'll say, I'm sorry, and maybe even send a sad emoji if you're berating her. so, she'll say, "Oh, I'm sorry, and I'll get you over to your closer," and she knows who the closer is, and so I'll get you over to this closer, and if they're not available, I can take a message for you. So it's that level of interaction that can really, quell maybe somebody who's upset, and so she can detect that tone and react to it. So that's where I think AI is really kind of again edging into being more human like and not just so static and remote.
Yeah, that's a really great point too. I had a webinar with Wayne Stanley from Bo Digital, and we kind of went
Yeah.
into utilizing automation versus AI in marketing and chatbots. To your point, yes, they can either be using an automated conversational sort of predetermined pathway where you will choose
Choose your
automated.
adventure.
Yeah, basically it's like choose your adventure, where it's like, what do you have a question about? Here are your options to choose from. So that's important to make that distinction when talking about, AI versus automation. Automation is kind of maybe that baby step into AI is how I kind of think about it, especially if you are beginning to make those improvements within your customer service and then within just your I guess technology stack in general when you are just trying to figure out, well, what can fit within my budget. Usually an automated chatbot is like that easy first step to kind of understand what kind of questions are you always answering, and then just creating out those really simple pathways to help them answer those questions and then pass on the more advanced questions to either a live person or then begin to think about introducing AI into your technology solutions. And I guess on that point too, I wanted to ask, when I think about the title industry, there are just so many companies in various stages of adopting a technology stack. So I was curious what your opinion would be on sort of the ideal software stack for a modern title company. What does a title company have to do right now in order to even successfully utilize a tool like Alana?
Yeah, I like how I like that question because that everybody has, you can't run a title company today without some kind of technology in the back office. And so it's like, what is the right technology? And my thought is the right technology is the technology you have today. The grass is not greener on the other side of the fence. It's a facade. The system that you have today used in the way that it can be used and leveraged is key because so much part of taking a system that you have and maybe evaluating your processes and how you use that system, how you configure that system is key. And then the other side of that is making sure that system is easily integrated with other solutions. So like we're going to be very specialized in customer communications, and that's what we're going to do really well. But if we edge over into another space of a title company, we're going to be less able to serve that side of the title company because we specialize in communications. So hopefully that makes sense.
Can you maybe give sort of a checklist of, because it's still a little abstract to me. So I like having sort of a checklist in mind of like, I know I need to do this, this, and this in order to, maybe the objective is to successfully leverage an artificial intelligence virtual assistant. So after this podcast is over, what should be the first thing that they do?
Yeah, I think when the checklist comes into, I think when it comes to workflow, I think that's probably one of the key elements that an AI solution can kind of leverage would be when you have workflow implemented in your title production system. you know that you have certain milestones, and in each of those milestones, there can be opportunities to communicate. And so I think that's where the audience is listening and they're like, okay, how can I leverage that? It's like, well, what are the points in your process or opportunities to communicate? And so, key to starting the road of good customer service is communicating information in a timely manner. So when a file opens, you want to make sure that, hey, look, you hey, I'm Alana. I'm going to be your virtual assistant along this journey that you're on. And your file just opened, and here's a text message that can communicate that introduction, and here's where you're at. But where we like to specialize is asking in that communication, asking to start the conversation, because that's where Alana specializes and really kind of elevates is I've told you that you're at this step in your process, but now ask me what the next step is. And that kind of conversation is where now all of a sudden the technology becomes more familiar to your customer, and they can lean into that, which is I've saved Alana as a contact, and now I know communications coming from Alana are communications from that title company. So the key is to not only so you leverage your workflow to inform customers, because it'd be great if you could just tell everybody all the steps and they're satisfied and they never want to pick up the phone and they never want to send that email, and they're happy. But truth be told is, we can text them, we can send emails, we can do everything we can, but you know what, on the day before closing, they're still going to wonder, where's my closing, how much do I bring to closing, when is closing? even all this key information that's been over communicated. So it comes back down to where AI can help is that with those key questions, either you have to have a human on the other end to answer a chat or pick up a phone or respond to an email, or you have somebody like Alana. So it's a key element is having the AI in your title company to help out. And we've been talking about Alana, but from a marketing perspective, Alana can be rebranded in an avatar, if you will, created for a title company. So there's quite a few different examples of Alana customers that have different avatars that they use. And so it's great because it creates personality for the title company. It creates, a way to help your customers bond with your title company, whether it be Max, a golden retriever, or Alfred, a butler. And they all have stories. And everybody relates with these stories, and they understand what the story is behind Alfred the butler. And turns out Alfred was the actual founder of the title company and things like that. And so, and shows their servant type mindset of how they interact with their customers. So it's a lot of fun, but the technology is a key component because you have to have not only the technology, but then you also have to have the processes with your technology. And then you have to have the people to be able to help implement it and roll it out.
That's really cool. I didn't realize that there was a avatar feature where you can infuse even more personality and really, in a way, engage with people using your brand story. So that's really cool. I had no idea about that. And I was wondering too if there were other additional features of Alana that professionals might overlook or underutilize that you might want to share.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Randall and I are builders. We look at the industry, we see problems, and we look to try to create solutions for those problems. One area that, it's not that they're underutilizing it as of yet, but it's an oncoming problem that we see and that we've created a solution around, which centers around the idea of real-time translation of conversations. Having that ability for somebody communicates via Spanish, that Alana or whoever, Alana or Max or whoever your avatar would be or your personality can respond appropriately based upon the language that is being spoken to Alana. And so Alana is going to speak in over 50 different languages. That's pretty significant when it comes to there's laws in Congress now that are coming through that could require title companies to service their customers in for the most popular languages in their marketplace. And so when you're talking about languages that you might not have staff that can handle those languages. And so Spanish, we're in Texas, so Spanish is very familiar in our marketplace. But in Indiana, I was talking to a gentleman just today, And they're saying the second most popular language in Indiana is Mandarin, Chinese. And so having a title company be able to support a conversation via Chinese or Mandarin is, I mean, it's significant. And so having AI to be able to do that real time translation that your escrow officer is typing in English and then it translates on the fly to Mandarin to whoever's interacting with him or her is, that's person to person communication or person to Alana type communication. So pretty significant, I think, in the world of AI, being able to do that type of, we talked about natural language and understanding the intent behind when somebody asks a question. And that's what we're all about. It's not static pathways. It's what do you intend? What are you asking about? What's the question behind the question? And that's what AI tries to figure out. Well, now we're talking about communicating in two separate languages and trying to understand intent behind a foreign language question. So it's a pretty exciting time for us, for sure.
Yeah, that does sound really exciting. And it sounds like a really valuable tool, especially as I keep reading about the expansion of Hispanic home buyers and being able to communicate with those people in a way that they'll understand. And if you don't speak Spanish, then I could definitely see a tool like that being incredibly helpful in helping them navigate the home buying process, regardless of what language you speak. So that's really cool. I like that a lot. That's awesome.
So that, we talked about the question, this CFPB and some of the things that are coming through, tightening up that agency. And I think that, language and satisfying different languages for your marketplace is going to be a key topic, whether it be forms development or again, just general communication and being able to deliver a disclosure in a way that your customer understands.
Yeah, definitely. And it's awesome that you guys are developing toward that with that in mind and you're sort of ahead of the game on that. So I do have a question too about the CloudStar ransomware attack.
Mhm.
I know a lot of people in the industry are probably a little anxious to adopt more technology because of that. They might not, fully understand what happened, what went wrong, and how they could protect themselves. So, what do you tell these people to put their minds at ease when you're having conversations with them around whether it's Alana or adding any sort of technology to their company?
Yeah, I mean, it's such a great topic and very timely. One of the first questions, or one of the first things I mentioned to anyone that has those type of concerns would be have conversations with your trusted IT provider. We have trusted IT providers, not only for Alana in a super secure environment, but also any customers that we're interacting with. So we have technology that we have to marry up with their implementation of their production system. And so we had customers that were on the CloudStar side of things, and they watched what they had to go through. But we also have other trusted partners in the industry that provide hosting services. And so they've done it. We've done podcasts together with them, and they talk about how important it is to understand security at multiple different levels. And so really, it comes back down to having a trusted partner and then having those conversations about security and really understanding each component of your overall plan if and when disaster strikes. CloudStar is one example from the ransomware perspective, but let's just look at COVID. I mean, from an IT perspective, that threw everybody into a tailspin. And I was talking to one title company CEO, and she was mentioning that if she hadn't have taken her servers from the on-site solution that she had because she loved her servers, she'd hug them every morning, and that was where everything was, and put them into the cloud. If she hadn't have taken that step, then when COVID hit, she would not have been well prepared to have a dispersed workforce staying and working in production that she otherwise would have been kind of down with everyone else. So she really kind of related to this concept of what happens when disaster strikes. And so her specific example was that there was a significant power loss due to some hurricane type storms. And so since her data and everything was in the cloud, everybody was operating as normal from home. And then when COVID hit, everybody still had the opportunity to work from home and business as usual. In today's age, I mean, in Texas, we had a tremendous issue back in February to where we lost power for pretty much the most of the state. The ramifications from that was everybody's houses basically froze, and then that means plumbing broke, and that means flooding happened in all these homes. And it was just it was really kind of a horrific scene, from rural communities to, Austin, downtown Austin and Dallas, and we all had very significant issues. And that was just, kind of a natural disaster. It wasn't a hurricane, wasn't a tornado, wasn't an earthquake. I mean, this was just frigid temperatures and unprepared infrastructure.
Yeah, there are definitely the pros and cons that you have to weigh when you're deciding whether you're going to have your own servers or outsource that to a cloud-based service. And yeah, when you were talking about that, I was also thinking about natural disasters. We have a couple of our team members from Prop Logics that are stationed in Texas, and that was a terrible experience for them. So, between being able to move your team to a remote based work from home sort of setup to being able to respond timely to any sort of disaster, it's a really important thing to think about when you're making those considerations. So yeah, that's a really great point to make. I'm curious if you have any tips for title companies when they're evaluating new software or service providers. What are some of the key things that you tell people to think about when they're making those considerations, weighing those pros and cons?
I love that. I love that question. And believe it or not, I get it kind of often, for the sake that first thing they say is, people ask us, "Hey, does Alana work with ABC?" And if we go no, it's like, "Well, what systems do you work with? Because we want Alana really bad, and we're willing to change." so so it really puts us in a position of making a recommendation. And one thing I always first and foremost talk about is, as you're evaluating technology, and there's usually a top two or three contenders in the marketplace, I really encourage folks to look at, once the sale happens, what happens from that point on. Because the relationship you have after a sale, in implementation, and a year, 2 years down the road, I think is so much more critically important than the sales process and kind of that dating phase, if you will. Because, after the honeymoon, then it gets real. and so and so it's like, okay, what does that look like? And it's tough to see beyond that. But I encourage talking to customers, try to not get references from that company, but to find people that know other customers that have had the experience. Because that, to me, the service after the customer becomes a customer, to me, is critical. It's hands down the most important part of a business. And I think, as I talk to our customers now, I'll ask them, "Hey, how's Alana working out for you?" And it's funny, I always expect them to really talk about the product, or talk about, "Hey, I love this feature," or, "Hey, this is great," or, "Can you do some other things?" But I kid you not, the thing that comes up just about every time is, they first say, "We love your customer support." And that they more likely, they say, "We love Penny, we love Racy. These are our key front forward facing customer support and customer implementation advocates." And so they're just like, "We love these people. And then we love your sales guy, and we love you." And, it's like they're just wrapping their arms around our company. Nothing's perfect. And I'm sure you guys, you guys run into this too. There's going to be hiccups along the way. There's going to be road bumps all along the way. Those speed bumps are going to be there. But it's not about if they're there or they're not. In sales, it'll be like, "Oh, it's a smooth road for as long as you can see." Truth is told, there's going to be some bumps. But it's like, what happens when you hit those bumps? How does the company respond? How quick do they respond? What do they do? Do they listen to you? Do they blow you off? Do they understand your issue? Do they embrace the problem and work together to get a solution? Or do they just go tough and, "Oh, we'll deal with that," or, or they pass it off, "Oh, that's a developer's problem, and we don't interact with those guys, and there's nothing we can do for you." There's 100 of those stories. But, from our perspective, we just got to love on our customers. We got to let them know we're going to be there for them. And when things aren't good, we're going to admit that they're not good, and we're going to work to fix them.
Yeah, I agree. And at the heart of customer service, I definitely think is empathy, not just a willingness to listen to people, but really hear and
Hmm.
learn and show by action that you are really listening. And so I think that is super key to not just gaining new customers, but retaining them and then turning them into, people who are raving fans, are evangelists of your solution, whatever it might be.
That's it. My goal is every customer should be a reference customer, and that's my. I say it from day one, is that we should have anybody who talks to our customers should be able to represent their experience with us in a very authentic way, whatever that experience might be, and we're going to work to make that the best experience.
So, talking about technology adoption, do you think that companies who are hesitant to adopt technology now should be worried about their competitors?
It's interesting because technology. I'm a utilitarian kind of guy. I mean, I don't advise people to adopt technology for the sake of adopting technology. I'm like, that's crazy talk. I'm like, you have a problem, and if there's a technology solution, get that solution to solve your problem. But I will say that given the Google reviews that are happening, and if you're in a competitive landscape, the people that are going to fill out the reviews, the people that are going to look at those reviews, more than likely are the people that you want that are kind of up and coming, if you will, as potential customers, and therefore that's important to have kind of a public reputation that wasn't as important a few years ago and now is critically important. So it's like, okay, well, if that's important, then what do we have to do to get a public reputation that is favorable? And so that means interacting with your public, with your customers, in a way that they are comfortable interacting with you. And that's where all these channels of customer support or all these channels of interaction come into play. Talk about a web chat channel, you talk about a phone call, you talk about a voicemail, and you talk about emails, and then you talk about texting. If you bundle all that together, making sure that each of those channels can actually create a favorable customer experience is really a challenge. I think that the companies that adopt these technologies that can give their staff room to work. So Dottie can answer the phone because the other 15 questions were answered via text, and Dottie's not having to deal with 15-year her junior, type person that is asking these questions that Dottie just is not connecting with this person. Because that's kind of the interesting component, is that when people talk to another person on the phone, they connect or they don't. And there's it's just a blink type reaction. And so if they don't click, the ability to satisfy that person from just a general feeling when they get off the phone can really diminish. So yeah, it's a trick. Customer service is just such a tricky business overall. But then again, coming back to your question, which is, technology can really, give some advantages in the marketplace. And again, when you talk about staffing shortages, being able to have more capacity with a good quality core staff, and not just going out hiring anybody and then bringing them on and trying to scale them up. Yeah, that can be a big challenge. So how do you augment that? Is give Dottie more room to work and let her do what she does great, and be able to still interact with the people that don't want to call. They don't want to talk to Dottie, even though she's a great person, but they want to text. They want to get their information, give their information, and just show up on closing and do their signature and be done. That's going to give them the 5-star review they're looking for.
Yeah, that's great. I think that that's a great one to end it on, unless you have anything else that you think is really important to share with our audience today.
I would just say to keep an open mind. I mean, what was good business being done a decade ago? We've come a long way in a decade. So just keeping an open mind. Think about these new technologies coming into play, and they might not be the best in every situation. It's not that this is not the silver bullet. This is not going to cure any horrible type problems that we have in the industry. But what it can do is give us a bridge to the next evolution of where the industry is headed. And we're on a pretty steep curve when it comes to the tremendous amount of volume that's coming through our industry, and where we're expected to be as a true, business to business and business to consumer type organization. So we have to kind of continue to level up, if you will, and let technology help us get to those next levels.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, technology is a great tool to help you, like you said, give your current staff the room to do what they do best. And I think that's a really important note to leave it on. And thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. This has been a great conversation, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much too. I appreciate you inviting me.
Thanks again to Hoyt for joining me today. If you want to learn more about Alana, head to their website, Alanna.ai. That's ALANNA.ai. Title Talks is produced by Prop Logics and myself. Original music is by Cole Sando, and original graphics are by Jordan Norris. Until next time, happy closings.